Good evening. Design Review Board 1 public meeting of February 10, 2011 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker's cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be called to present a case or speak on a specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current DRB agendas are available by calling our DRB hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB reconsideration and appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the DRB decision date. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at their discretion. Roll call. Mr. Aliano.
Here.
Mr. Insua is absent. Ms. Palmer.
Here.
Mr. Simonian.
Present.
And Mr. Yu.
Here.
Report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on February 3rd, 2011. Oral communications. Do you have any cards up front for oral communications? No? Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak on an item not a part of the agenda? Seeing none. We are down to the review calendar. Staff at this time doesn't have any announcements, and there are no consent calendar items, so we're down to our regular DRB agenda item.
Welcome to Design Review Board 1. Our first item on the agenda is 1 PDR 210-053-A 902 Staunton Way. I have 3 speaker cards. Oh, let's go over that first.
Less than. Okay, I'll start from the beginning. An application was approved on September 10, 2010 to allow construction of a new single-family dwelling on a lot with less than 80 linear feet in the R1R zone. A copy of the decision letter was sent via email to the board members. Project summary: the applicant is proposing to construct a new 4,858 square foot, 2-story single-family house with an attached 3-car garage on a 20,329 square foot lot. The existing site is currently developed with a 1-story, 2,540 square foot residence. The lot size is 20,329 square feet with an existing single-family residence built on a flat pad. The lot has an irregular shape, which is much larger than the other lots in the neighborhood. The footprint of the house will be located primarily on the existing pad, with a proposed deck and pool located on the southerly portion of the lot. All open space areas on the lot will be landscaped as shown on the landscape plan for the project. Access to the site will still remain off the Staunton Way. The house is set back 58 feet from the front property line. The proposed 3-car garage will be semi-subterranean and will be slightly visible as displayed from the perspective drawings. The sides and rear of the house are at least 10 feet from all of the property lines. According to the plan submitted, there are no oak, bay, or sycamore trees located on the property or within the 20 feet of the public right-of-way. Although a California sycamore is proposed on the landscape plan. While the lot configuration is unique in the neighborhood, the applicant has made an effort to situate the house appropriately on the site. The house is well situated, and the landscaping creates a usable area on the site. The proposed site planning, landscaping, and parking are all appropriate and complement the site and the neighborhood. On to mass and scale. The project is located in a hillside zone where the neighborhood is comprised of primary one-story single-family homes. Immediately to the east of the property and across the street are one-story single-family homes. As proposed, the house's design will be 2 stories and with an overall height of 29 feet 4 inches, where a maximum is permitted. Where a maximum of 32 feet is permitted by code. The project's massing is broken up with recessed building forms and geometric volumes. Applying this technique serves to accentuate design and minimizes the boxy outline of the residence. The use of color and materials on the first and second floor and recessed forms serves to articulate the building, thereby breaking it down and providing a sense of horizontality. As a result, the building's horizontal design and scale are compatible with the neighboring properties. The project's massing is broken up into several distinct volumes. Various design elements of the building, such as variations in form and placement, height differences in roof lines, and use of color, help create a well-proportioned building with a variety and rhythm in design. While somewhat larger and taller than the existing homes, due to the design of the mass and scale, the scale is appropriate to the site and fits well within the neighborhood. The surrounding neighborhood is a comprised mix of architectural building designs and styles. As previously indicated, the immediate street block is comprised of primarily 2-story homes. The proposed feature is a streamlined contemporary design that includes an emphasis on rectangular shapes, voids, clean lines, and modern finishes. In summary, the proposed materials of the house enhance and are compatible with the proposed design. The overall design concept shows logic as it relates to a high caliber materials proposed and design features as well as proportions. Staff recommends approval of this project as submitted. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have at this moment.
Do you have any questions for staff?
We've received some letters that you've passed out from different organizations, along with the CUP write-up that you sent earlier. Are there anything you want to add from that we should know of before we start?
I believe that is it. That was the last communication that I had from the Homeowners Association. That is all that was given to me, but further comments that I have.
Is there a materials board or?
Yes, there is a materials board.
Can you pass that around?
Grab that for you momentarily. Find it.
We have 3 speaker cards here. One being the architect. You want to do that? Come first, Alan, or state your name and address for the record.
Does it work? Yeah. Good evening. My name is Alan Malikian. I'm the designer of the project. My office is 2255 Honolulu Avenue in City of Montrose. We started this project pretty much about a year ago, and the first thing we did was we went through the CUP because of the narrow width of the existing driveway. And we had to go through the CUP process to be able to demolish the existing building and build a new 2-story house. During the process, we came across and we met the neighbors, and several issues had rose when we started the process. And we've met at least, if I recollect correctly, about 4 times, if not more, with them, both at the site, at their house, at my office, and so forth. So we try to resolve as many concerns and conditions that they were concerned about and we were trying to resolve. Basically, the project is pushed back and away from the edge of the slope of the land, the property. the pool is placed, or the proposed pool for the future is placed facing the south property line, and as close as possible to the property line. During the CUP, we were asked to go ahead and put a certain number of stakes. Even though that was not required, we chose to do that to kind of prove to them that this is going to be within the context and make them understand, everybody, that what we're actually proposing. And we did that, and the CUP was approved accordingly. And then after the CUP, one major request that the neighbors had was the main entry, the section, not the living room, but the main entry was actually 3 foot higher, if not a little more, I don't remember, but it was actually higher than the upper, it was the highest point of the building. And during the negotiation and talking, we decided, and I had one option, that I would lower that, and they were very excited. But after I looked at that, I realized that flattening and elongating that piece, the rectangular piece, would not work the way initial intent was to create these 3 variations of volume. So I actually lowered that, which after we submitted the RB package, I invited the neighbors to come in and take a look at the package and so forth. So I've tried to use primarily white to accentuate the volumes that I wanted to create. Facing south, being that it is facing south, we've created openings, which is primarily the view side, but at the same time creating overhangs to create shadows and other elements there to minimize the sun impact into the building. Overall, it's I don't know if you had a chance to visit the site. The staking was done, the flags were shown, so you can actually see how far back it sits from where the existing building is right now. And we're trying to maintain the same pad elevation. Basically the garage is tucked under the living room. And be able to, and we've lowered the driveway slope to be able to achieve that. We've also done a section kind of cutting through the entire property and going down to the south parcel to kind of show where the building is going to be seated and the visibility of the structure from lower levels. Other than that, very simple materials: plaster, concrete finish, wood, and stone veneers in certain areas, and that's pretty much it covers the project. So,
well, I'm clear on this. Are you saying what the entry proposed in our packet is not what you're proposing?
No, it is. It is.
I misunderstood.
No, I mean, what I was explaining to you was the process that it came to come to this point. That was the CUP packet, that it was actually higher, and what we proposed was lowered, and thus, meeting the requirements of the neighbors and lowering the mass.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
We don't have the... It's coming, and so we'll take a look at it. But can you talk a little bit about, I mean, I understand your ideas about keeping the material simple and sort of...
Right.
The white color plaster, is that something that the owner is adamant about, or what is the background behind that?
I actually looked at different options of colors, and the white... the contrast of white with glass and other elements there, it was something that we all liked, and I think out of the options that we looked at, it was the only one that actually accentuated the forms that we have, and the cutouts that we were proposing, like the slits in the in the north elevation, like, for example, that elongated slit that we have by the stair shaft. If we were to propose a different color there, I think it wouldn't have been as effective as what it is now. And it allows me to use a darker elements of siding and other elements that kind of bring these volumes and together and create these forms that I wanted to kind of emphasize. And you can actually see that a lot more clear on the south elevation where you have the U shape. In there, in those recessed walls, actually, and also the west elevation, I've used some gray tone colors there that, again, as to represent the background as what it is important for me to accentuate.
Any other questions? Al?
Yeah, I have one question. The window material, what sort of windows do you propose?
It's a dual pane. It was dual pane, but now that Cal Green is in effect, so I don't know what the impact is going to be, but it's definitely going to be substantial as far as the UV and other. We have to be, and I'm still waiting for the City of Glendale to determine the mandatory measures that they were going to require us to do, but it will need to meet the Title 24 and beyond that. So it may actually come to be a triple pane. I don't know, but definitely going to be a dual pane and has going to have a slight tint to that to be able to give the. You can see the color of that.
And is it mostly going to be aluminum windows?
Aluminum windows.
Aluminum. And then are they going to be flush with the white plaster, or are they set in?
No, they're actually.
Especially like on the west elevation, where we have the cutouts.
Right. The walls are actually we got the preliminary structural, and those walls may actually turn out to be a lot thicker than I would want, and so therefore the windows are going to be flushed with the interior wall. They're going to be block aluminum. Probably Arcadia. I think I'm specifying Fleetwood. So it could be Arcadia, depending on, if it. I don't want it to be flush with the exterior. I want it to be flush with the interior. So if that becomes a factor for me to be able to get that, I would probably use an Arcadia and make it flush with the interior.
Okay.
Create the recessed conditions there.
And the other floor-to-ceiling windows will be storefront system of some sort?
Yes.
And so with material, we have the plaster and the stone and the glass, right?
And the concrete.
That's right, on one of the retaining walls. Okay. And the stained wood, where would you use the wood?
Actually, you can look at that on the south elevation, and we have some on the north elevation as well.
I see that dark mass in the south elevation,
right,
around the kitchen area.
Exactly.
Are you using it in the soffit area, or is it just plaster turned soffit?
The plaster will turn, so the volume is going to be apparent as far as the volume. It's going to wrap in, and the stone. The veneer is going to go up to the bottom of the soffit. Okay.
Thank you.
Next speaker card I have is, I think, the owner, Mr. Hefsepkian. State your name and address. Give you 3 minutes.
Sounds good. Hi, I'm Harut Hefsepkian. I'm not the owner, but my parents are the owner, my father and my mother. Address is 826 East Orange Grove Avenue, Burbank, California, as of now, and we're looking forward to being part of the new Glendale community. So I just wanted to say hello. So just wanted to say it's nice to be back here again, and we've had a lot of productive conversations with the neighbors over the last 6 months, and we're looking forward to be a nice, productive, conducive part of the community, and we listen to all the concerns and try to address every single one of them, and with a lot of both time and effort and financial expenses, but it was our great pleasure, and we look forward to being a good part of the community, and it's nice to be back here. I was living in Washington the last 6 months, working in the White House, so it's nice to be back in Los Angeles, and I look forward to being part of the neighborhood. And yeah, that's about it, so thank you.
Last card is Richard Lee. State your name and address, please.
Good evening. I'm Richard Lee. I live at 925 Penn Shore Terrace, adjacent to Stewarton Way. And I am the reason I'm here is that I'm a neighbor and a representative of the immediate neighborhood. And first I want to thank the architect and the owner for their cooperation in arriving at the design that is before you today. While the proposed house is still 100% larger in floor area and has a height that is greater than the neighborhood average, I believe the current design attempts to mitigate neighborhood compatibility concerns. With that being said, and based on the fact that the final height of the building is of critical importance, since it directly relates to the visual impact on the neighborhood, I respectfully request that the DRB include the following as conditions of approval. The DRB has placed these conditions on other projects where height and size are critical. Number one, upon the completion of all the roof framing, prior to installing the sheathing, a licensed surveyor shall perform a survey that shows the as-built finished elevation of the highest portion of the roof using the garage floor elevation as a benchmark. In addition, the survey shall show the as-built elevation of the finished garage floor using the average street elevation, 100.30, as a benchmark. The surveyor shall submit a certified copy of the survey to the project case manager or planner. The required DRB framing inspection shall not be conducted or approved until the project case planner certifies in writing that the as-built roof elevations comply with the plans approved by the DRB. Finally, this building is pushing the envelope in terms of size, mass, and scale. Thus, to stay within the inherent character of the neighborhood, it is critical that there is solid assurance via the survey conditions that the building will not extend behind the envelope approved by the DRB. Now, I have for you 6 copies of that proposed conditions. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
We have here a letter from the Royal Canyon Property Owners Association. Is that the organization you're part of?
No, I'm representing the homes around the property.
I see, the immediate homes around.
The homes that received the notification from the city regarding the CUP hearing and the DRB hearing.
And is your group working in conjunction with are they working with the Royal Canyon Property Owners Association?
Yes.
I see. Because they had some concerns and there were some emails going back and forth, and I'm wondering if all those issues have been solved as far as you're concerned and your organizations are concerned, and that basically what you're proposing here indicates that as far as mass and scale, things seem to be okay and acceptable. You just want to make sure that during construction, what is depicted here is built according to this size and mass.
That's correct.
And so, again, that's why I'm asking is how closely are the immediate neighbors working with the Royal Canyon Property Owners Association, and is everyone on the same page where what's depicted here is acceptable to to both groups?
Well, my recollection is that the homeowners association concluded by saying that they would not oppose this project. So from the homeowners association perspective, their conclusion was that they would not oppose the project.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other question?
Thank you. I have no other speaker cards. Is there anybody else who wants to speak on this? Okay, we're going to close public hearing. Do we need a rebuttal? Alan, do you want to discuss?
Regarding this, right? I mean, shouldn't that the proposal?
Are there any questions regarding these letters that have been submitted? Anybody here regarding the homeowners group?
First of all, I haven't seen any of those letters, and so if there are new letters, I haven't seen them. So I don't know if there's any issues that I haven't been warned about. But as far as the two items that Sir Lee mentioned, our intent is to build according to plans, and I don't think the contractor, the builder, is going to sway or go against what we build. And to assure what's there, I don't see any problem with that. Obviously, we would want to, I don't think there's going to be a problem with that. As far as the staking and the massing, we verified with the surveyor as we've, and I wanted to make sure that the staking was placed according to what we've submitted as far as the staking plan, and I do have a copy of that. So I did get a copy that a land surveyor went out there and then located all the posts, make sure that we've located exactly the way that I've indicated. I'm sure he's going to be on a contract basis, so I don't see a problem of having him on board throughout the construction, grading, and also when the framing is going up. Make sure that everything is within the boundaries of what we're proposing on the plans.
And some of these letters that were presented, and they are dated. They were some time ago, September and November of last year, and so it's been some months.
Okay, you know what? Okay, let me, if I may, can I read this, or should I sit down and you guys deliberate and then I can come back?
I don't think we need. Is this one you haven't seen before? What you're looking at now?
If he's got to take some time to review it, that's fair.
We can come back.
I have more of a general question for Mr. Malakian. Insofar as your interaction with the neighborhood, the neighbors, the neighborhood council, the neighborhood association, are there any items?
Actually, you know what? I do recall this letter, and this letter was issued, I believe, right after I presented the DRB package to the association. I invited everybody to my office and we looked at it, and I think this letter was issued only stating that they cannot have a supportive letter until the story poles are up, which I don't know if they ever got around to do that or not, but Mr. Lee has been very closely involved with them, so if he has his comments or these two items, I'm pretty sure that the homeowners association is going to follow that recommendation. I mean, I don't want to speak on his behalf, but
that's why I had asked in the beginning, because I noticed the homeowners association wasn't here, and so apparently they have a representative, an immediate neighbor speaking on their behalf. So we're assuming there's no issues, and that insofar as these conditions are concerned, if the board agrees to integrate them after a discussion, then we could rule out any objections from the neighbors and the homeowners association.
Thank you, Alan. Close the public session. To discuss this.
I'll start. I commend the team that brought the project forward, just because I think that they were able to take this project and sort of go in the right steps of getting the community involved, I know you have to go through a CUP process, which sort of helps you kind of get all your materials together to present it to the neighborhood, give them a chance to look at it, take their feedback, and make the changes necessary to be able to get the house you want, but also, you're in a neighborhood, and there's going to be people that, want to make sure that it gets done right. I think that keeping the existing driveway, tucking the garage under, it's a good idea to lower the height of it. I know you're making the living room space a little bit higher space, a little bit nicer, and it's a good way of getting both of those things balanced out. I like the layout of the project. It is sitting predominantly in the same sort of general area of the pad that was existing. The massing, of course, is different, but by using a sort of a horizontal linear approach to the design, I think to sort of maximize your space, your two-story space, without having sort of large roofs that happen to take up a lot of sort of visual space above the house. Materials-wise, I'm always sort of drawn towards natural finish, natural colors and stuff. That's why I was kind of asking about the white, because it is sort of contrast to sort of the natural sort of stones that you have, the wood and those kinds of things. And of course, personally, I like the white just design-wise, but I could see trying to fit into a hillside, not using sort of natural environment colors. But I think that the project is sort of tucked in and sort of, you see the major corner as you're approaching it, and I think it's a good approach in sort of fitting in that way. I like the design. I like the massing of it. The open versus closed in the front and back, the long overhangs on the southern sides to make sure that you don't get hit by direct sunlight as much. So I think the only thing would be the white, starkness of that white. I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but might be an issue. But otherwise, I think it's a beautiful project, and I would support that.
I agree as well. I think it's a well thought out project. It's a very unique project in that it has its own inherent style. It's contemporary, but it's certainly been designed to fit into that site. It is not an easy site to work with. You have a narrow driveway, a narrow frontage, and then you have this large pad at the rear. And so the building is shifted its second-story mass more towards that hillside, along, I guess it would be the west side, and actually submerge the garage into the terrain and reduce the massing as much as possible for a home this size along the street. The different materials are refreshing. It's extremely contemporary, I think. It works. It's a nice design. And as Mr. Yu is pointing out, it certainly is going to pop out. It's going to, I think, certainly be visible, especially in some of these pictures that have been illustrated to us. That said, though, I think it's such a well thought out design that it'll be just another unique piece of architecture in that Royal Canyon hillsides. There's been a lot of large homes that have been built along the way, and some great architecture. If we look at it, there's some Spanish homes in that area, federal style homes, and they all have just distinct characters, and probably a very rich history of architecture exists in that area. And so we are in the 21st century, and why not start bringing in some unique, well-designed modern buildings in that neighborhood as well to represent our time. And so that's why I was asking many of the questions, as in, is the neighborhood association and the neighbors, are they all united, and are there any issues? Is there anything that we should hear about? And from what I've heard and what it's been told is no. The only thing is they're more concerned about what's depicted here is built, and that's a fair statement. I think staff does a good job checking on the framing of a design anyways during construction. So I'm all for that condition to be added in there. I think there shouldn't be any issues with that. But again, I think this would be a nice home to have in that area, and if I was a neighbor, I would enjoy looking at it. And job well done.
Yes, I would also like to congratulate the team. I think you've done a really good job in the design and also in the way you sort of work with the community to achieve this project, because it sounds like it was a pretty good collaborative process in terms of trying to give the neighborhood or respond to the neighborhood's concerns, and at the same time in developing a project that you will be proud of and agreeable to. So I don't think there was any kind of compromise here that's detriment of the project. So having said that, I also talk a little bit about what I see, which again is very positive. I think given the size of the building, square footage, even the footprint, I think you've done a really good job in trying to make this project as transparent as possible, especially on the south side. The approach of just using glass to sort of reflect whatever is around and make it, again, to make it transparent, to see through the building into the spaces. Just the way you've depicted the renderings, I think, showing the artwork and the furniture inside, it gives you a really good sense of what this building is going to look like. You really are going to see, we probably won't see this because of the angle, but if you're a bird, I guess you would see it. But the idea is that, you've gone beyond what's required to really prove that this building, at least that side, not have this sort of massive look. And you've done the same on the other side, on the north side, which is the other critical elevation, where there, instead of using glass a lot, you've used, planes to sort of play against each other, and then using the white in contrast with the stained wood, because the stained wood basically becomes the void, and all you see is the white form, the shape. So it's a very successful project, I have to say. Probably one of the most successful designs that I've seen your firm do in terms of really working with what's there and trying to work with the site. It's very restrained. It doesn't have a lot of stuff that doesn't need to be there. It's very restrained, and that's what I like about it. And I think it's going to be a very successful project, especially convincing to me when you look at that rendering, lower right-hand corner, the approach and the road and how the building actually steps up. I mean, those are all very good moves. So I'm totally supportive of the project, and I again congratulate you. But I suppose one of us, maybe we should respond to these comments that were made by the neighbor. I'm not sure if the neighbor is still here. I don't think these are. Yes, I don't think these are. I'm glad to hear that the neighborhood agrees with what's been done, and there's been this sort of collaborative process. And I think what I heard was that the neighborhood is accepting of this, but as long as they're assured that at the end you're actually going to get what's being shown here. So I don't think that these requests to have a surveyor prove or document all this, that this is being done according to the plan, is really unreasonable. So for me, I think if this allows this project, facilitates the project to be approved and to have a project that's going to be built, that's going to continue to strengthen the relationship of the neighborhood with this new owner, if this helps doing that, I'm all in for it, because I don't think, I'm not sure that the architect will not oppose to that. I think it's just additional cost, but given the critical nature of this approval, I don't think it's unreasonable. So for me, I'm okay with these. These are not unreasonable requests. So having said that, I'm all for it.
Well, I agree with all my colleagues, and I think it's admirable design. I do agree with Mr. Yu's comment about the coloring. I would just prefer a little more subdued in that particular area, but I think this works. Also, when you look at it at the drawing, they look larger. When you're on the site, you're not going to see the whole building, and there's some large sycamore trees and some other trees that are put in, so you're really not going to see much of this building from the front. I think the rear elevation where you will see it is very well done. And my only comment regarding the landscape is I think the plan is fine, but when they go to do the infinity pool, check the plan, you have a 10-foot hedge behind the infiltration of the pool. I don't think you want to be looking at a hedge. Check that out. Other than that, Bill?
Actually, I just had a quick comment about this. I I tend to agree and support putting it into it because I think they have agreed to do it. I don't think that it gets very hard to set a precedence and this required as a per project because most projects going through Glendale, it costs a lot more than regular projects do anyway. And so to add something else to it, I think that there's already enough, checks and balances between, planning department, the building and safety. Of course, they're in one, but I think there's enough of that to be able to make sure that it doesn't get any bigger than it used to be. And so I'm okay with it because they've agreed to do it and they're willing to do it because of the project. But I don't know if I would support it if it wasn't out of it. I think it's an additional cost to the owner, to the people, and so I just trying to be careful of that.
Yeah, it's just, it just makes things easier.
Yeah, because they've agreed to it, I'm okay with it,
But your point is well taken. It's very easy to set a precedent where, it's recommended that we do it once and then it's recommended a second time and next thing you know, it just becomes this protocol like, why wouldn't you? It's been done half a dozen times already. So I would absolutely agree and wholeheartedly support the fact that this shouldn't be a precedent and that this is a one-off situation. And because of the uniqueness of the building, because of how I think it's a gorgeous design, but it's unique. And so the neighborhood has some issues which they want to resolve this way. And I think shouldn't set a precedent. But again, good idea for this time around.
So you agree that we should allow it for this?
Yes.
We read back whatever conditions we have.
Yes, Madam Chair. I am just reading Mr. Lee's condition, and I'm trying to understand that since I will be part of the team that will be enforcing the condition. Perhaps I may have questions for Mr. Lee. He states that, in addition, the survey shall show an as-built elevation of the finished grade floor using the average street elevation at 100.3 as a benchmark. The survey shall submit a certified copy of a survey to the project case planner. I just want to verify where that elevation point, where Mr. Lee got that elevation point. I may have him clarify that, please.
Open the public hearing again. State your name and address.
I'm Richard Lee at 925 Penn Shore Terrace. The 100.3 is the street elevation. That was the one elevation that hasn't changed and won't change.
From the subject property?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's basically right in front of the front.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, Madam Chair, as far as the other conditional concerns, I did hear some concerns regarding the color of...
Just a comment from me.
Recommendation, yeah, not a condition.
Not a condition.
No.
I have the two conditions of Mr. Lee and a comment or a condition about the hedges along the side of the infinity.
Just a comment.
Just a comment. Those are the three conditions or comments that I have.
Excuse me, would you like those two items, the color and the hedges, included as considerations in the record of decision, or is it simply part of the discussion?
I think it was just part of the discussion on my part.
Okay, thank you.
Just discussion.
So the only condition would be Mr. Lee's.
At least two conditions.
I think we're ready for a vote.
Your motion?
Second? Teacher.
Got it.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Yu to approve the project with two conditions, and a second by Mr. Aliano. This will be roll call. Mr. Yu?
Yes.
Mr. Aliano?
Yes.
Mr. Simonian?
Yes.
And Ms. Palmer?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
We take about 3 minutes to set up the next project, so. Okay, our second project for the day is 1 PDR 210-058-A 1431 Greenbrier.
Good afternoon, board members. The next project before you with the case number 1 PDR 2010-058 located at 1431 Greenbrier Road consists of remodeling and changing the style of the existing two-story house by adding new windows and doors, a double-height entrance, bay windows, covered porches, and by increasing the floor areas of the first and second floors. 98 square feet is added to the first floor and 199 square feet to the second floor of a 3,136 square foot two-story house. The residence was built in 1966 on 25,393 square feet lot in the R1R zone. The house will also be remodeled in the Mediterranean style. The proposal is basically the incorporation of architectural details and features in the exterior envelope of the residence, creating modulation on all elevations. The design emphasis has vertical elements relative to the existing design that has a more horizontal feel. The neighborhood contains a few homes designed in Mediterranean style. The new roofed entrance on the front elevation, a two-story vertical element, along with a projected balcony, provides a desired break in the front facade of the residence. This helps break the massing of the building as viewed from the street. A double-height entrance is not foreign to the neighborhood since a couple of homes are designed with this feature. A new balcony with wood panel guardrail, bay windows, and a double-height entrance are proposed on the street-facing facade of the residence. At the rear, the second-floor addition and first-floor porch create a vertical element which projects out, providing a break in the length of the house. Fiberglass, wood, and windows are proposed throughout the house. There are oak trees on the site. However, the urban forester has not expressed any concern regarding the construction on the site. The house lacks significant character-defining features, suggesting that it would not be considered a historic resource under CEQA, nor is it eligible for listing on the Glendale Register. The site slopes up from the street towards the house, which is located on the front portion of the lot on a graded path, beyond which the site slopes up sharply. The existing attached garage projects forward from the residence towards the street. The double-height entry at the front of the house brings the front elevation closer to the street than existing facade of the house by approximately 4.5 feet. However, the garage remains about 8 feet closer to the front property line than the house. The residence orientation and location remain unchanged, relevant to the existing condition. At the rear, due to the addition, the existing setback is reduced by 11 feet without significant impact, since the majority of the lot is located behind the house. The site plan arrangement is typical of the neighborhood, which consists of 1- and 2-story homes with street-facing attached garages. The footprint of the residence remains well within the neighborhood range, and the proposal will not disturb the neighborhood pattern in terms of site planning. Except for the areas of the addition, the landscape plan remains intact. A landscape plan by landscape architect is suggested as a condition of approval to show landscape improvement, particularly at the front of the house. The existing 2-story house is 26 feet high, and no increase in the height is proposed. The house has no specific style, consisting of 2 stacked horizontal volumes of different sizes. The single-story garage in front of the 2-story portion of the residence allows for the stepping of the house with the slope of the site as recommended by the hillside design guidelines, reducing the appearance of mass. The building remains modest in scale primarily because only portions of it will be modified, and the proposed additions are only 297 square feet in total. Therefore, no significant impact in terms of mass and scale on the surrounding properties will occur. Houses designed in the Mediterranean style are typically massive and boxy, and therefore the subject house will not be out of character with the proposed style if it appears somewhat boxy, partly due to the fact that the main roof over the house is a continuous roof as viewed from the street. A multi-level roofing system would reduce the appearance of mass greatly and is suggested as a consideration. Details and features such as exterior window grids, wood panel railing, wrought iron railing, two-piece clay barrel tile roofing, plaster seals, and other plaster features are proposed. This approach is a positive step towards harmonizing the existing and proposed portion of the house in a traditional style. Wooden panel railing is proposed on the street front balcony and wrought iron railing on the balcony at the rear of the house. Choosing one type of railing on all balconies is suggested as a consideration to allow for a better consistency throughout the residence. The existing and new portions of the house are well integrated and appear as a whole. The new style of the residence is Mediterranean with details and design which have unified the new and existing portions of the house in a traditional style. Staff recommends approval of the project with the following considerations and conditions. Consider one style of railing throughout the house for a more consistent design. Provide a landscape plan by a landscape architect for landscape improvement, particularly at the front of the house. Consider proposing multi-level roofing, particularly for the street-facing facade. Applicant has stated that the railing, there is a retaining wall which has got a permit, and also there have been interior remodeling which has separate permit. Both retaining wall and interior remodeling has a separate permit. However, there has been some work done on the roof, has no permit. I'm sure the applicant will further explain, and those needs to be legalized and permit is needed for the roofing which is done. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any question.
And just to add to that, even though there is a retaining wall that has a permit, the applicant has obtained that permit knowing full well that that's part of your review package, and if you require changes to it, then they would need to provide those.
Does that retaining wall have is it just approved as a retaining wall? Is it decorative or requirement in that permit as to what type of retaining wall?
Yes, there is. I can tell you what type. The retaining wall is a maximum 5 foot in height, and the material is slump stone and the grout to match hillside color. These are the specifications for the proof.
Slump stone.
Yes.
Any other questions for staff?
I noticed the property was fenced off and that there was some framing was exposed at the rear.
Right. That is what happened, that one of the board members noticed and notified us, and I spoke to the architect, and as I said, the architect can explain this further, but apparently the contractor has done this without their consent. So.
Other questions?
It's a split.
Right. Well, on the permit which was issued, it is a slump stone. So this is what was proposed by the architect. Provided by the architect, but the permit shows the slumps.
Sure, the architect can explain.
Maybe we can get the architect to come up and discuss it. I have two cards. One's the architect and one's the owner, whichever one comes first. Your name
Good evening. Mike Aragus, 3501 Buena Vista. If it's okay with the chair, I'd like to do just a tiny bit of tag team within the few moments, just so we can talk about the issue about permitting and the work that's been done. And then once that's done, I can go right into the design.
Clarifies it.
Yeah, just to clarify, and then we can get into the particulars. As he will explain when he gets up, he's carrying 2 mortgages, trying to complete a new house that he wants to move into. So in the course of the time it takes to process design review, he asked me what kind of elements could we work on with permit, so we could be on site legally. And I told him, you're going to be doing interior work, and why don't we go ahead and get permits for those so you could proceed on that, which he's within rights to do. And then decided to do the retaining wall work on the side, which again we did knowing that it would be part of this package for you to review later. The materials that were used for retaining wall are slumstone, which is required and requested of through the Hillside Ordinance. So we try to be sensitive to all that in the hopes that you will be supportive of it. In terms of the work, all of that work is within those existing permits. There were some elements where the contractor got a little bit motivated and started taking a little bit of the roof off, which he shouldn't have done, and we apologize for that. It's something that happened within the last 2 days and got overzealous, but that was not our intent to have that happen. But please note that what we are proposing within this design review application, which you have control over, is an entire renovation of this house. So there is nothing that we're doing that won't be part of our submittal and for you to review tonight. So, and our intent is to get permits for all those items. There obviously will be a roofing permit because we are changing style of roofing. So whatever is happening out there or has happened out there is for you to work on tonight, and was our original intent, was that all of those elements are part of our submittal. And we apologize for those little bit of element that went a little bit too far. But I'll just have the owner come up and speak a little bit to that, and then we can get into the design, if that's okay with you. Or is that necessary? Or I'll have the owner speak to that if there's still a question
Why
about...
don't you just continue with yours and then he...
Okay, great, very good.
That's it, yes.
We'll get right into it. It's as you saw, it's a very simple home with a modest amount of architectural detailing. The question was, what could we do to add interest to the front face? It might be a little bit of semantics, but when you say two-story entry, I don't think of that as a two-story entry. I think of it as a two-story element. I think a lot of times when you think of two-story entries, it would be one across the street where there's double-height columns or something, and that's not what we're proposing. Proposing something more in line with the style in terms of a two-story element. But the trick was, what can we do to that front facade to add interest to it and modulation to it, and came upon those elements that I think are very strong. You see them on many houses down on Mountain. As you go around in there, you'll see homes that have the cantilever balconies with wood elements, and they'll have sort of strong plaster elements like a two-story entry component. One of the considerations that staff had mentioned was to do some kind of variety in terms of the roof form. The way you approach the house is pretty low. You're actually, when you're coming off the sidewalk, you're very low and you have a very steep angle as you're looking up at the building. So I don't think a lot of work in terms of the ridge line is going to have the same kind of effect as what we did propose, which is bring elements out in front of the facade such that you would get modulation just because there was the three-dimensionality of elements being added. So that was the idea about trying to add those elements in order to break the line, because you would be looking at it at a low angle. That was the intent. So I'm hoping the spirit of what we did would address the issue of that concern. Along the lines of the railing, we just took a few shots of homes in the neighborhood, and we can pass those around. And what you'll see on there, I think, is what our understanding of the style is and our feeling of the style, which is when you're doing a wood balcony, you would do wood railings that associate with it. And I think if you've ever seen wood balconies like that that had iron on it, they tend to look not as substantial as they should be, almost too light for the wood structure that's purposely heavily done. And you'll see on those pictures that wherever there's a wood balcony, there's a wood baluster, and on the same home, where you'll have a plaster element, you'll have a iron structure, and that the iron works a little nicer coming in connection with the plaster. So in terms of those two elements, I think we've given visual And then in terms of the landscape plan, the owner would be comfortable with providing it. That's would not be a problem. If there's any other questions, I'd love to answer them. Oh, and I'm sorry, one last element. Sorry. It's big, and I should have noticed it. In the course of trying to have the neighbors, do contact with neighbors, generate a plan with the floor plan and elevation site plan, and had it reviewed and signed by all contiguous neighbors. That they've completely reviewed the plan and we're comfortable in support. Actually, all of them are in support with no objection. That's noted on the plan. And I'll present that also.
A couple of questions.
Sure.
For clarifications, because we didn't have color elevations.
I submitted one.
The old one.
There was a new one. There was a larger color one.
Yeah, this.
No, it was, okay. Well, it was.
So you submitted the color one?
I did. It's not a third.
Okay.
It was a 11 by 17?
I don't...
Sorry. I apologize.
No problem. Well, while they're looking for it or whatnot, just some simple questions. On the north elevation, in regards to the wood panel guardrail that we're discussing, are we assuming that those wood beams that come out,
right,
and then there's wood posts and wood rafters,
right,
and so the entire balcony facing the street is going to be...
It's all heavy timber, yes. All heavy timber.
You've also mentioned on the windows on the left side of the entrance, you've mentioned plaster sills.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why you're going with plaster and not wood sills?
I think it's very much within the style to have plaster as opposed to wood sill on that type of home. I think you'll do a wood lintel sometimes on a Spanish house. You'll have a wide wood lintel. But I think whenever you have a sill, it would be a plaster. Well, let's be clear. The wood is, it was still a sill of the window, which might be wood. In our case, it will be clad. But it's below that, what I'm saying sill. It's actually a plaster base below the sill. So the window would still have a clad sill, if you want to say windowsill.
And then there's like some sort of a plaster projection that
exactly,
comes out.
That's below the sill, right.
And what sort of windows are you proposing? Are they all new windows? Or
yes, they are. They're aluminum clad factory paint, and actually the color will be slightly lighter green than it's on there. That's just the factory color.
So they're wood aluminum clad?
Right.
Okay. And the wrought iron grill that's apparent on the window on the left side of the entrance?
Yeah, living room window, yes.
Is that an existing?
No, that's new. I probably should have provided examples of that, but I think you could think of living room windows that had iron, a grill.
So that's reminiscent of the Spanish style. That's
yes.
the intent?
Yes, yes.
And the massing of the garage, the roof of it.
That's not changing. That is current massing.
That's the existing massing of
yeah,
it.
Yeah. Some of the givens, which was that the main volume of the house and the garage were. The issue on this one is you already had enough footage on the house, so it's not as if you could add footage, a lot of footage, to create a new volume. I've tried to add what we could, which was these elements to add interest to the front, but there's basically enough footage on the house, so it wasn't like we could add footage independently.
And on the south elevation, you have in the middle the projection on the second floor?
For the master bedroom.
Is that going to be comprised of plaster?
That's all plaster. That whole extension is plaster, and there's a sort of a corbel detail that goes under the window that's all plaster also.
And the railing on the south side, what do you envision there? What sort of railing?
That was wrought iron, along with the pictures I showed you. I think the wrought iron works better when it's connecting to a plaster element, which is the pictures we've shown. It's always been my feeling and impression that that's a strong way of differentiating those elements.
And your roof, what are you proposing on the roof?
It's a two-piece clay tile.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Any questions?
I have two.
Sure.
Assuming on the garage, now there's 3 protruding beams, those are going to be removed?
Right, yes.
Stucco.
Right.
And what is the purpose of the retaining? What's going to happen down that side of that house?
They don't want to park in the front setback. They're hoping there might be a car that could be on the side, which would not be in setbacks.
So that's all going to be a hard surface along that side?
Majority of that's hard surface, but it's way under percentage. If you took either percentage of side yard or percentage of front yard, it's well under the allowable.
And what surface would that be?
It's a concrete surface. Could be, yeah. but it's well under percentage allowable.
My questions I have. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And now, Mr. Karapetian? Say that right?
Paul Karapetian, 3436 Madera Avenue, Los Angeles. I just wanted to let you know, regarding our process of finding this house, this was a 3-year endeavor. We fell in love with the lot. It's a large lot, perfect for football. The house itself, as staff has pointed out, didn't have a distinct style. It's really just 2 large volumes. We've taken every effort to make this a distinctive and unique Mediterranean-styled home. The 2-piece tiles, the wood-clad aluminum wood-clad windows, and just want to let you know that we're committed to making this a unique home. We've met all the neighbors, and they've seen the plan. We've sat down with them in their living rooms, and we have full support of everyone adjacent to us, as well as the neighbors along the 300 feet in front of us. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Questions? Okay, we'll close the public session. Mr. Aliano.
I think, you've done a really nice job transforming a house that's adequate to something that's quite very well embellished in terms of the style that you picked. So you transformed this house into something that's quite wonderful. And I think even when you were explaining contrast between the rail, the wrought iron, when you pass those things around, and the wood, the timber, I'm all in agreement with that. I think the contrast is quite nice. I mean, I would look for that, because that's what this style is about. It's really about mass, but it's also about delicate details. So you've done that, and I don't really have any concerns. I think this will be carried out and it will be built. I have to assume the way you've designed it. I mean, I think the only question that I would have, not necessarily a concern, is that of all the pieces of the house, the garage is the only portion that to me feels less embellished and less, because it looks just like a regular garage that may not have as much connection to the house. So I was wondering if, as you develop this, because for me, I mean, I'll support the project. I like it the way it is. But there could be some room where you might want to do some other things. For example, in the garage, the big panel on the side, to me that's an opportunity to really bring in some detail. Maybe there could be a little window with some bars, sort of bringing in, the language that you have already. Only portion that seems not congruent with the house. But other than that, I think it's going to be a wonderful place.
Mr. Simone?
I agree. This is one of those designs that isn't really altering the exterior mass of the building, and so you're just trying to introduce a interior renovation to it, and at the same time create a distinct style, which I think is successful. And so some of the questions that I asked earlier certainly shed a lot of light on some of the concerns I was having, because it was hard to tell in a black and white what the materials were. And so after hearing the responses and assessing the design, it's going to blend in very harmoniously with the neighborhood, in that the mass is not going to change. There's this existing style and this existing texture. It's in the context, and so this building is going to get nestled in there, and it's not going to pop out. And in that way, it's very successful, because that was the intention of it. It wasn't create something new, and it was basically to take the mass and just to renovate it interior-wise to make it more suitable and compatible for the residents. And so that said, I think it's successful. as a consideration, I would just add the garage that I asked about the mast. The mast is existing, so we can't do anything about that, but you might want to maybe introduce some sort of a different texture above the garage door, maybe, in a way of creating that depth, or just a different layer, or as Mr. Aliana pointed out, some sort of a window. But I think you're a very good architect, and you'll be able to come up with something if you think that's a good idea. But I think that certainly could help, certainly the entrance of the home and curbside appeal. But in general, I think the retaining wall that's placed is compatible. There's no issues. It's just creating some more of a side yard. It's always nice to have a car tucked in out of the site as opposed to having a car on the driveway anyways, so that there's no issues with that. And as far as the rear of the home is concerned, it's not going to be all that visible, just the side is, and some of the elevations that you have on the east elevation and so forth, I think do a good job of breaking up the massing. And so all in all, I'm in support of the project.
My comments are pretty similar, along the same lines. I think it's a wonderful way of sort of transforming a sort of different era, different architecture into something that the new owner wants and desires for this new house and their house. And so to make it their own, I think it's wonderful. I did a great job at telling this, style and putting it in. The two-story element that's there, I think it's good. It breaks it up. It's more of a horizontal before. A lot of the detailing and the wood belt you're putting in, it does make sense. You want to wood and then the iron in the back as it connects where you have, but where you can end your wrought iron. But yeah, I go back to the same things. The garage, it's the first thing you're going to see, unfortunately. It's great if it was sort of the reverse, where you have the house and then the garage tucked in. Let's add some more detail in there. I think it's going to look so much better as you're coming in, where the vent would go or something, some kind of detail. Maybe even borrow some of the wood balcony elements and maybe put it in front of the garage door to just balance it. Because right now, it's offset sort of garage door that kind of looks almost, really accidental. And also, I would also suggest taking a look at the east side of the garage, because you're sort of creating a two-sided courtyard as you're entering the house. Maybe make that a little bit nicer as you're coming into. I think that would create that space, and you would get a very good impression as you're coming into your house as well. So the back, I'm okay with the master bed. I think you did a great job with rearranging sort of the spaces and livable spaces on the lower level as well as on the upper. Well done. I think it's going to be a very nice house, and I'd be ready to support it. So.
I agree with the comments, and I think job well done. And the garage is the weakest point, but and you've got a couple little windows to the left of the front door. Maybe bring those over to the garage, or you might consider spending more money and doing a wood garage door, which might, I guess it's the first thing you see. And my other comment would be to make sure that the wrought iron railing is at the back. It looks a little more commercial, and maybe it's the drawing. So come up with something that's really sensitive. And I think since the house is going to come out to be a very nice house, I would suggest taking down all those Hollywood junipers in the front and doing a landscape plan that's conducive to complementing the house. And maybe since you are adding that extra parking area around the side, do that driveway in a concrete with a texture or something that's more enhanced, because you're going to be looking at a 5-foot slump stone wall and concrete, and then the stucco on the side of the house, and that's not going to be a very pleasant thing.
Want to make that a condition?
I would make that a condition.
For the driveway, enhance the driveway, were you suggesting that just be decorative or also permeable?
I don't think it needs, they have plenty of property. I don't think it needs to be permeable,
Okay.
just decorative.
Okay, thank you.
Plus, with that slope, the water could drain out.
I'm okay with it.
Need to reopen this?
Very quick, I promise to be quick. If you want to do this consideration, he was saying that there could be some planter that could go into the wall or somehow working other additional into that, so that wouldn't be a problem. I will say one thing about it that unfortunately didn't make it onto the drawing. The idea was to set up for a really great wrought iron sconce, which actually goes to the left of the door. Didn't make it on the drawing, but that was, we had thought about trying to add elements to it. But I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Want to read the comments that we have?
Introduce a different texture or windows above the garage door. Propose more detail for the garage. Rethink the east side of the garage. Consider wood door for the garage. Rethink the railing at the rear. Provide a landscape plan. Propose a more enhancing finish for the ground area adjacent to the retaining wall and driveway to the garage.
I think some of these are comments, and some are conditions. If I can surmise that, the discussion on the garage door, that was just a recommendation. I think the only issue is the landscape plan, driveway area. I think the others were
okay.
The wrought iron, the decorating.
Can we make a general sort of requirement or condition about doing something to the garage?
Right, I think that's...
Yes, so there would be a condition to provide some detail enhancement of the garage, whether it be an enhancement above the garage, like a decorative vent, above the door, to the side of the door. It doesn't sound like the wrought iron sconce suggested by the applicant would be sufficient, but that would be a nice addition. And then another suggestion, and not requirement, would be on the, I think it's the east wall of the garage, to embellish that wall. And they could do a combination of those things, and we'll be happy to work with Mr. Garregos.
And the retaining wall is it's slump stone, or that's what it is? So that's going to be slump stone.
So that's
Does that have a cap?
Slump stone with a cap, I'm hearing from the applicant. And I'm seeing
Shadow cap would be more decorative. I think a shadow cap would be.
Okay, so to provide a shadow cap to the retaining wall,
Your consideration.
it sounds like if it's already there, the cap is there also.
Cap is on.
Okay. That's okay.
Okay.
You could consider an extra cap.
Till about the door.
Okay.
Promise to consider.
Okay. Do we have a motion then?
Move for approval.
I'll second. Second it.
The motion to approve with considerations and conditions was made by Mr. Aliano and second by Mr. Simonian. This is roll call. Mr. Aliano?
Yes.
Ms. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Simonian?
Yes.
Mr. Yu?
Yes.
Mr. Insua is absent. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that, I'm going to be Roger Kiesel for a moment. That finishes the review calendar. It looks like you have some minutes
Minutes
to
from
approve?
January 27th.
Yes.
Who was here? He was the only one that was absent. Who is not here?
So it seems like you would still have 3
Anybody have any
to
questions?
review.
Motion?
I moved to approve the January.
Second.
Okay, so I guess we do a roll call for that to approve the minutes. Mr. Simonian?
Yes?
Mr. Aliano? Chair Palmer?
Yes.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Staff doesn't have any business or discussion items. Are there any items of interest or concern to the board?
No.
That's all we have.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Second necessary.
All right. That was pretty quick.
Good job.
6:40?